Counting down Elliot Harrison's top 5 Detroit Lions of all time, how high could Calvin Johnson have climbed on this list had he continued his career at the pace he was at?
Boy, I think he probably could have made it to 2. He wasn't going to. He wasn't going to make it. He wasn't going to make it to 1. You know, a lot would have depended on how much success the team had because they didn't have a lot with Calvin Johnson. I do think team success plays at least a small role. Although I don't really get into that, how many Super Bowl rings does a guy have?
The hard part, though, is you knew what a weapon he was for the Lions, and he continued to put up big numbers. So I think that says a lot, despite the fact that the team didn't have maybe some success they'd hoped for. At number 4, going way back to the 30s with a guy who started with the Portsmouth Spartans, later to become the Detroit Lions. He is a charter member of the College and Professional Football Hall of Fame. Quarterback, kicker, punter, Dutch Clark.
Do you really have to say anything after what you just said? Read that line you just said again.
I did it for you.
Charter member
of both Collegiate and the Professional Hall of Fame.
Give me a break, man. Portsmouth Spartans made the first unofficial NFL title game. They played the Bears at Chicago Indoor Arena.
There's that famous picture.
Yeah, famous Life magazine photo in 1934. So not only the Spartans playing that championship game, the NFL decided to institute it as a regular thing the next year. And this Life magazine cover right there that you just saw, that helped pro football really land on the map. You have to understand the 1930s, you had the Depression. People only had so much money to go to games. Baseball was ahead of football. Boxing was ahead of football. Shoot, wrestling was probably horse racing, golf. Football was probably the 8th most popular sport. College football was way more popular. So a guy getting on the cover of Life magazine made All-Pro 7 out of his 8 years. The Lions won the title in Detroit in 1935. Dutch Clark absolutely deserves some spot on this list.
You go back to pre-modern history again as well with the guy you got at number 3, linebacker Joe Schmidt, who is also in the Professional and the Collegiate Football Hall of Fame.
I love the nuggets you're dropping here. Look, pro football has been played for 96 seasons. And if I'm doing top 5 all time, I'm not just going to do since the merger in 1970. A lot of great football played before the Super Bowl era. And you want to talk about the Super Bowl era, you talk about the Green Bay Packers getting it kicked off. Well, the decade before, the team of the decade was the Detroit Lions, who won back-to-back titles in 52 and 53. They won again in 57. They also lost a title game, and their premier player was Joe Schmidt on defense. Joe Schmidt, one of the best middle linebackers to ever play, and seems to be forgotten by history, maybe because he made the Hall of Fame so long ago. Absolutely deserving.
At number 2, a guy who basically grew up in my hometown of Fort Worth, Texas, then went to Highland Park High School, played with Doak Walker, then went to college at UT, Bobby Layne.
Yeah, Bobby Layne was, I guess you could say, the Brett Favre / John Elway of his era. Brett Favre, just because of the way he carried himself.
What do they call him, the Blonde Bomber?
Yeah, the Blonde Bomber. Teammates loved him. He was very lighthearted, but he was a winner, and he did it at the end of games. Really, he instituted the 2-minute drill as much as Johnny Unitas did. A lot of heroics at the end of games, including winning the 53 title game late. Bobby Layne, a fantastic player, and again, Pro Football Hall of Fame.
One of the notes I'd said, other coaches would say, he's not the best quarterback, he's the best winner.
Yeah, well, that's pretty much the epitaph for Bobby Layne.
All right, at number 1, you've got Barry Sanders, and my note here is, come on.
Right.
That's my note for Barry Sanders at number 1 for the Lions.
I remember this run right here. This was 1997 against the Bucs. Barry Sanders had 2,000 yards rushing that season, and this is the Bucs and their creamsicles. Didn't matter when Barry Sanders played the Bucs; he always beat them. And he beat Dallas. This is the 1991 divisional playoff you're seeing right here. I remember this run.
Heart. You broke my heart, Barry Sanders. You ripped it out of my chest, stomped it, threw it on the floor.
And this is a Cowboy team that would go on to win 3 out of the next 4 Super Bowls, but the Lions hammered them in the playoffs behind Barry Sanders. One of the greatest running backs of all time, easily. I have him number 3, behind only Jim Brown and Walter Payton on that list. I have him barely ahead of Emmitt Smith. What a great player. Only played 10 years, and similar to Megatron, retired early.
So good. So many guys that you could have chosen just because of the long history of this organization as well. Who got left off?
Oh, my gosh. So many good players. I mean, Dick LeBeau, Yale Larry, Jack Christensen, so many guys from that 1950s era, Cloyce Box. I can go on and on. Glenn Presnell from the 1930s Lions. Yeah, all day. Doug English, great defensive tackle for him. Want to keep going?
Man, fun list. Top 5 Lions of all time, according to Elliot Harrison. He could keep good.
Chris Spielman.
He will keep going.